Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be discussing ancient Israel and child sacrifice, and whether or not the God Yahweh was involved in any of them. Now, as Christians and people of Abrahamic faith, we generally accept that child sacrifice is an abominable and abhorrent act, and that nobody should be giving their child up to any religion whatsoever. But many scholars and people who are currently claiming that ancient Israel celebrated child sacrifice are saying that this is not the case, and that indeed in ancient Israel and Yahweh-worshipping people were indeed supportive of child sacrifice. Today, I am going to be deconstructing this argument. Now, most people point out to Exodus 2:29 when they are pointing out about any verses whatsoever that would come in support of child sacrifice, in which it reads that we should give up our firstborn sons to God, and that not only that, but we should give them up just as we would firstborn animals. Now, this can come off as very alarming to many people of faith, and this could be a very, very obvious sign that not only does God support child sacrifice, but that he's comparing firstborn children to animals. However, I think this is simply just not the case. Reading the text, we can clearly see that this is just God making clear that the firstborn is a special creature, no matter what race or no matter what species you would be. The firstborn son is special. It is what the Israelites were saved from when in Egypt. They were spared from the firstborn son dying, unlike the Egyptians, who indeed had their firstborns killed. And as Christians, we understand and completely represent the idea that these would be special, so you need to separate them. As well, in the same verse, it brings up the fact that on the 8th day you shall give it up to him. 8th day in Judaism would imply circumcision, which is obviously a very, 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 very important thing. Now, another argument that I would like to present is the idea of dedication. God has just provided you with a child, so it only makes sense that you would dedicate your very first one, whether it's your only one or one of many, that you would dedicate them particularly to God. And I believe that that's particularly what the verse means, that you dedicate them to God in particular, and that you sanctify them from the rest of your children. Now, many people, including myself, would also point out to verses such as the Moloch verse, which clearly bans child sacrifice in the Bible. It says that you shall not sacrifice your child to Moloch or any other, for it is abominable. However, many people are saying that just because it says that you shall not sacrifice to Moloch means that you can sacrifice to Yahweh. This is just simply not the case, and many can simply point this out just by reading many Bible verses. First off, we can point out that it is a scholarly consensus at this point in time that Moloch was not a Canaanite god, but indeed a way of sacrificing your children. It was not at all a way of killing to a god, but instead sacrificing your child in a specific light. And due to this, we can then understand that you could sacrifice to any god, but in particular, Yahweh bans you from sacrificing your child in this verse, because we understand that Moloch does not mean child sacrifice to a specific Canaanite god, but instead to any god. We also have many Bible verses that go against it, such as the one that was just listed in Leviticus 18:21, which reads, "You shall not give any of your children to offer to them to Moloch, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord." Very simple there. We also have other verses, such as Deuteronomy 12:31. "You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abominable thing that the Lord hates, their gods have done for them, even burned their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods." Now, obviously, is this not a clear one? Just because he doesn't specifically say that you shall not do it, he clearly reveres this as an abominable thing that shall not be practiced by any Hebrew Israelite at all. Or what about verses such as Ezekiel 16:21? "And you shall not, and you took your sons and your daughters whom you had borne to me, and these you sacrificed to them to be devoured. Were you whoring so small of a matter that you sacrificed my children to deliver them up as an offering to the fire to them?" That's another very clear description of banning child slaughter or any sacrifice in general. "For all the firstborns are mine that I struck down in the land of Egypt. I sanctify myself as the Lord of Israel from man to beast. They shall be mine, I am the Lord." This is a very, very obvious one right here. He's clearly saying that whether you are a human or a beast, you belong to him as a firstborn. Again, leading to the idea of dedication as read in the Bible. Now, many would suggest, however, that this would indeed imply in the book of Exodus that man and beast are to be considered the same. However, later on in Exodus, or at least not too far from, we, however, get this verse. Every first issue of the womb of all flesh, whether man or animal, which they offer to your Lord, shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn shall be redeemed. This in particular is an obvious one. It is saying that you shall redeem your firstborn, that all of them shall be put under that 8 days thing. It is not saying that you shall sacrifice them, but that instead that you shall redeem them. And this is a very obvious thing. Now we go to Exodus 13, verse 1 to 2. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Sanctify me every firstborn, the firstborn of the womb among the children of Israel. Among the people and animals alike, it belongs to me. This is clearly saying that the firstborn of every womb, whether or not they were of any animal or any people, this was clearly implying the fact that the firstborn were special, that you should dedicate them and sanctify them. This was obviously proving my earlier idea that this was not child sacrifice, but indeed child dedication. So, as we could see here, there's a very obvious thing there. Moving on from there, we have one more final verse, which comes later from this verse. This is to prove that the two of the animals and the people should be separated. To be clear, just because they were to both be sanctified does not mean they were alike. The firstborn son, or the firstborn child in general, was to be redeemed and was to be kept to be sanctified, to live. However, the firstborn animal was indeed to be sacrificed. This next verse is a very clear depiction of that. Verse 14 to 15. And it shall be when your son asks you in the time to come, saying, What is this? Then you shall say to him with a powerful hand that the Lord brought us out of Egypt from the house of slavery. And it came about when the Pharaoh was stubborn letting us go, that the Lord put to death every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from every human firstborn to the animal firstborn. Therefore I shall sacrifice the Lord of males of every womb, of every firstborn of womb, but every firstborn of my sons I shall redeem. This is clearly outlined that when it comes to the firstborn of the animals, those shall be sacrificed. Those shall be put to God, and those shall be an offering. But the firstborns of